The 99ers converge for Blitzkrieg on the Bilderberg meeting of the 1% bigwigs, stage week-long marches in solidarity with Canadian protesters, and join the U.A.W picket line. Exhausted. No way. With enough energy left for a stage performance at Union Square Park and attending the second class of the Summer Disobedience School in Bryant Park, as well as squatting vacant lots at El Jardín del Paraíso in Manhattan. Summer days grow longer as 99ers grow stronger. Get up, get down. There's a revolution in this town.
Get up, get down. There's revolution in this town. Get up, get down. There's revolution in this town. Get up.
Monday, May 28th, was Memorial Day in the U.S. Originally known as Decoration Day, dedicated to remembrance of soldiers who lost their lives in the American Civil War. The day became a day to honor all men and women who died while serving in the military. Some say it has become just another holiday marked by family barbecues and no school. But there are still solemn ceremonies across the land. In Chicago, Iraq and Vietnam veterans against the war joined together at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial to honor those who did not come home, to speak out against current wars, and to testify about ongoing struggles within the veteran and active duty communities.
Losing a friend in war is not a very easy thing to endure. When it happens, they tell you that it's because he died for your country. He died protecting freedom. But you can't help inside and feel anger and feel that what freedom and what honor did he die for? Especially when most of your comrades die so unexpectedly in the battlefield. We have to make sure that once and for all that these wars are ended, because they were not begun with the most honest intentions. We have to persevere, we have to stand up, and we have to speak out on what is not fair and what is unjust.
You know, I can go into details about such and such statistics, but it's people like you that need to go out and talk to the politicians. You know, your congressmen, you got to pressure them. You know, and you as a people have to go and do that. You know, you got to pressure the senators and stuff like that. They send people like me, the average Joe, to go fight. They don't go send their sons and their daughters to do that.
Memorial Day is the day we remember their sacrifices. It should be the day that we ask why. Why they had to. Because the goal of our society and every society should be a world where such sacrifice is not necessary.
As you just heard, 18 veterans commit suicide every day. That's 18 casualties of war every day who are not counted in the official casualty count. The fact is that more veterans die of suicide than of combat.
The week might have started quietly, but OWS quickly made some noise. Occupy Minnesota's peaceful defense of the Cruz family's foreclosed home in Minneapolis was met by bank mercenaries and police with 5 eviction attempts and violent arrest of 23 occupiers. Occupy Homes is a vital part of anti-foreclosure actions across the country. Motives well described by one of the arrested protesters. The banks are stealing our homes through illegal and fraudulent practices while refusing to work with families, and they're aided and abetted by the mayor and police. If anyone should be arrested, it's the bankers who crashed our economy while paying themselves record bonuses with our tax dollars. At last report, staunch defenders were regrouping to protect the Cruz home once again.
I'm from Montreal.
I'm from Montreal.
I live in New York.
I live in New York.
Our struggles are all connected.
Our struggles are all connected.
I want
to ask
if everybody knows
what
the red square means.
What the red square means.
All right. So everyone's wearing one.
Everyone's wearing one.
And people might ask you. What's that about?
What's that about?
The answer
The answer
is that it's a
that translate to mean
being squarely in the red.
being squarely in the red.
So it's not just a red square for the sake of it.
So it's not just a red square for the sake of it.
It really does represent the issue of student debt.
We're having a march every day at 8 p.m. Usually it's at Washington Square Park. Sometimes it's going to change over time, but tonight it's at Washington Square Park at 8 p.m. and they're in support and solidarity with the students of Quebec, Montreal, who have been striking for over 100 days in support. Basically, they've been threatened with tuition increases, and students have been taking the street. Over 400,000. I heard over 400,000 people took the street at one point.
Mic check. So in case you didn't know, there's some students in Quebec. Who have been on strike. For like 105 days. Because of tuition. Being raised. By over 75%. In the Quebec university system. They've been on strike. To contest a law. Which criminalizes protest. So today, in over 50 cities around the world, we're banging pots. In solidarity.
Heading east to New York City, OWS activists took to the streets every night to march for affordable education and against police repression, in solidarity with the massive, ongoing student uprising in Quebec, now spreading across the world. Using the signature practice called casseroles, the marchers banged pots and pans in an effort to build a similar student strike in the U.S. and to call for tuition-free, quality public education for all, abolition of crippling student debt, universities run by students, faculty, and staff, and for the right to assembly, demonstration, and dissent without repression. The OWS Solidarity marches were echoed across the country, including intrepid members of Occupy DC, who marched through pouring rain to the Canadian Embassy and proudly wore red as they expressed their union with Quebec.
Anybody that's kept track of the Occupy and other social movements outside of the mainstream media would know that the police and the repressive state have come down hard on us. People's heads are getting busted open, people are getting dragged by their hair, people are getting locked up for days for nothing but protesting. So for a country that is practicing that at home, to go overseas and say, hey, we're here to spread direct democracy, that's horse crap.
The issue of the United States criticizing other nations about their human rights records, it's a really tough position for the U.S. to take at this point. We have to sort of step back as a nation and view our position in the world. We can no longer see ourselves necessarily as the leaders of the free world who have the right to tell other people what to do. It's a form of cultural imperialism for us to criticize other nations on their human rights records when we do not necessarily respect the human rights of our own people. Recent events have shown that in another time, bills that have entered law and legislation in this country would have considered flat out unconstitutional and on an international scale unacceptable. The NDAA is one, the ability to indefinitely detain and imprison individuals without trial.
Heading back to Wall Street, the People's Gun continued its recurring Wednesday night ring as OWS working groups reconnect and reoccupy Liberty Park. The weekly event started off with a meet at Federal Hall, mic check, and the gun then ended up at Liberty Plaza to work on projects including plans for Black Monday, the first anniversary of OWS on September 17, 2012. Wednesday also found OWS NYC joining the U.A.W. picket line at the Strand bookstore, where workers are fighting back against cuts to employee benefits, personal and vacation days, increased health care premiums, and a two-tier system seen as a union-busting ploy. The Strand situation demonstrates growing awareness of working-class solidarity with healthy signs of increased interest in unions.
As far as I'm concerned, political...
On June 1st, the People staged a mobile performance venue which hosts an open stage at various OWS action, met at Union Square Park for a rally in support of all Occupy activists who protested at the NATO summit in Chicago, including the NATO 3 still in custody on terrorism charges, with bail reportedly set at $1.5 million each.
There were a handful of us in Zuccotti in the early days that were making signs, going on marches, daily from Zuccotti and going to Wall Street. And then we would get back from these marches and people were kind of tired. They were just, exhausted, looking for something to kind of, I don't know, to do at night, essentially. And there were a few of us, myself, Chantel, and this other guy named Miles. We got together and we had a little small meeting, the three of us, and we decided to host an open mic in the park, but we didn't have a mic that we could use in the park, so we decided to call it an open stage. And I think it was maybe 10 days into the occupation that we started the first stage. And the idea was just simply to give as many people a voice in a different form and more of like a performance kind of way, and so that we could provide entertainment for the people that were marching and inhabiting the park, and to bring together the people who were walking by and wondering what was going on in the park.
Performers included musicians and the People's Puppets.
Yes, better be! Us animals know what's what. Hell, it's just instinct. Animals don't say, hey, let's dump this gunk in the river. Animals don't say, let's store enough nuts to last 1,000 years. Animals don't say, let's shoot something and not eat it. Sure, a mongoose ate a friend of mine, but he was hungry. What the heck?
June 2nd marked the second class for Summer Disobedience School in Bryant Park, New York City.
The first 4 weeks in Bryant Park, we meet here, and what we do is some education. We learn about actions. We take some direct action real quick in the city. There's a lot of targets around here, and we get to know people. We get to like people. We form affinity with people. And all of this is building up to September 17th, Black Monday, which is going to be a really big day. We don't know what it's going to entail right now, but we know what we're doing right now is going to help us with that, by building affinity and learning all this stuff. Plus, it's a lot of fun.
There are 3 actions today, and they all are going to be out and big, and there's theater, and there's marching, and there's all kinds of things where you might be confronted by people, or where you have to keep your focus. So we're going to practice grounding ourselves in our bodies and in the people around us, so that we don't get flustered and we don't lose our way. So everyone stand up.
The school is inspired by Henry David Thoreau's "Disobedience is the true foundation of liberty," and asks questions such as, what is capitalism? Where is capitalism? Who and what sustains it? How can we starve its roots? And what alternatives can we create together? Training and actions this week included instruction on various tactics, a mic check at Times Square, a dance party, and a march back to Bryant Park, plus Occupy University assemblies, including radical economics.
If you're approached by a New York City police officer, like the first thing you should say is, am I being detained? And if the answer is no, feel free to leave, and I suggest you do so. If they start asking you questions, remember, do not talk to them. They're not trying to be nice and friendly. You're not going to gain anything by talking to them. Even if you're under arrest, give them your name so they can process you through the system without unnecessary delays, but do not talk to them. Also, if they start to do your Miranda rights, you have to Mirandarize yourself. They're not going to read them to you. They're going to say, oh, everything you say can and will be held against you. It will, even if they don't tell you that. So be quiet, please. And if you're arrested, ask for an attorney. Do not freak out. NLG usually provides one for free. Everything will be all right. Don't freak out. And if they ask to search your bag, consent is silence, so you have to say, and you say it a couple of times, I do not consent to the search.
Our idea is to kind of do maybe a lap around the park as a march, maybe even a picket in front of this Bank of America tower, with the ultimate goal of drawing as much of a cop following as we can, and then take that over to the NYPD station right in the middle of Times Square. We have some flowers, and then right at that moment try to turn the energy in the other direction, and we actually have a mic check statement that we're going to all say together that kind of tells the NYPD that their pensions are also under attack and all these different things that affect them in their profession.
Summer Disobedience School is a 12-week training program for activists of all levels of experience founded on several principles. We learn by questioning, sharing, and doing. We learn from and with each other. We learn with our hearts, minds, and bodies. Our education will create space for action, empowerment, and imagination. And our growth will allow us to shed layers of fear and complacency.
Get back. Is this man being detained?
Clear the steps. Let's go. Everybody,
The gardens became a real
OWS ended up the week in New York with several workshops on Saturday, including the Squatting Vacant Lots event held at El Jardín del Paraíso in Manhattan. This workshop detailed the tactics and techniques of squatting, occupying, rehabilitating, and defending vacant lots for the purpose of creating community gardens and parks with and for neighborhood residents, illustrating the 99ers' concrete efforts to improve the lot of all citizens. Perhaps the most explosive action of the week was the Occupy Bilderberg protest in Chantilly, Virginia, from May 31st to June 2nd. The Bilderberg group held its annual meeting there. Occupiers and other protesters from different backgrounds came together to greet the group they described as a globalist cabal of billionaires that control international finance, industry, and media. The annual off-the-record gathering of global leaders in finance policy and national security took place behind chain-link fencing, no trespassing signs, and scores of local police. Protesters sought to illuminate a widely held belief that Wall Street doesn't pull the strings in this world, Bilderberg does, saying, if you want to attack the puppet masters, focus on Bilderberg. They denounced the meeting of leaders of institutions they say control the U.S. and other governments. Likely debates at the meeting were the U.S. presidential election and the fate of the Eurozone, Bilderberg's biggest project. The vehicles of the elite did not slow down to wave at the raucous crowds meeting them, and as usual, mainstream media did not cover the event. It is evident that, as summer days grow longer, Occupy Wall Street continues to gain momentum. Many in the movement believe the reign of the 1% is collapsing, as indicated by its desperate deployment of police, law, and media in an effort to silence 99%ers and keep them in their places. It is clear that human solidarity is spreading across the planet as awareness of alternative possibilities grows along with courageous determination and an escalating sense of power to the people.
All unstoppable, unknown world is possible. We are unstoppable, another 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 world is possible.
New U.S. claims for unemployment benefits rose in the last week of May for the fourth straight week, while over in Europe, Spain came a step closer to requiring a bailout. The indices on both sides of the Atlantic nosedived, finally giving away what the bankers have tried to hide all along, It takes some ghoul to even speak of a recovery in the current economic climate with a straight face. Yet the rulers' bankers have been appearing on supposedly reputable business TV channels talking about such a course almost ever since the meltdown began. Those who fear Europe's current climate might damage any US chances are on the right track. However, the conclusion that Europe is to blame is taking the easy way out. The fact is, Chancellor Angela Merkel of Germany tried to jettison her sinking Eurozone ship from the US, but a Washington, used to exercising control over Europe ever since the Second World War, has been reluctant to let go. The lead weight of Europe is now dragging the US further down. So shall we blame America's Empire First mentality before deriding the European cousins for the latest round of bad news, perhaps? The US Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner has claimed a 2.2% economic growth rate in the first quarter of 2012, pointing toward a slight recovery. The problem is, independent business analysts have not found that figure anywhere within the US economic structure, and most privately agree that the US is currently breaking even at best, provided Europe does not go belly up in the foreseeable future, which could put things into a double reversal. The quasi-economic Muppet Show being played out before the US public would be laughable had millions of Americans not lost their homes, jobs, and future prospects to the 1%ers' wicked ways. But hypnotized and paralyzed, all await the Big Brother's next announcement because it just might herald good news. The great American way of life is back at the expense of evildoers in faraway lands. However, the faraway lands are not populated by evildoers, but with more 99ers, human beings who have already been exploited to breaking point. The difference is that this time America's 99ers realize that the ruling elite have cast them adrift in the same boat as their brothers and sisters in faraway lands. So the only way left to pressure the rulers to cough up their ill-gotten gains is through direct application of democracy. A little while ago, protesters from National People's Action and the National Domestic Workers Alliance tried to deliver a letter to Geithner demanding a financial transactions tax, principal reductions for underwater homeowners, and an investigation of the bankers who caused the mortgage crisis. More than 1,000 people went to Geithner's home, while the Wall Street Journal put the number at a few hundreds. Needless to say, Timothy Geithner never came to the door. But what if 100,000 families get out on the street day after day in all major cities to protest their living conditions in the world's supposed #1 economy? Could the Treasury Secretary afford not to at least try and account for the mess the rulers have landed the patriots in? Just imagine